Previously on Borrowed Kitchen, we met Robert Johnson, a famous blues guitar player who recently lost his wife. Racked with grief, a friend suggests he focus on his music as a means to move on. Problem is, Robert isn't the best musician, which begs the question. How far is he willing to go in order to get good? Let's find out. Slim told Robert about the Crossroads. Initially, he laughed it off, but as the weeks ticked by, Robert grew more and more curious. Eventually, that curiosity got the better of him. According to Slim, any crossroads would do. It just had to be a place where one road ended and another began. Robert stared at the road in front of him. This ought to do, he thought. He pulled his threadbare coat close and steeled himself for what was to come. "Anybody there?" he whispered. Crickets chirped in reply. "This is stupid. The hell am I doing out here anyway? I knew I shouldn't have listened to Slim. There's two things that man knows about. Booze and more booze. Get help at the crossroads. Psh, there's no help here." Robert kicked a lump of dirt along the road. He turned to head home, then he noticed it. An old oak tree that looked way too much like their tree. He made his way over and then slumped down along the trunk. He put his head in his hands and then cried himself to sleep. Later, he awoke to a loud crack. Warm light spilled onto his face from the nearby campfire. A man dressed in a plain linen shirt and trousers dyed in the deepest black sat next to him. "Lovely night, isn't it?" the man said. Startled, Robert scurried away from him. "The hell do you think you are, sneaking up on a man while he's asleep?" The man snickered. "The hell do I think I am? Now, ain't that a good question? I've been called many things, but I like to think of myself as a friend." Robert eyed him suspiciously. "Funny thing about friends is that they've usually got names." The man flashed a smile, a row of perfect pearly white shining brightly in the dark. "Perhaps you've got me there. Friends do have names. Tell you what, friend, how about you just call me Scratch?" Robert suddenly felt very uneasy. "Look, I ain't looking for trouble, okay?" "Course not. You're looking for me after all. Isn't that right, Robert?" How do you know my name?" "Oh, come now. Did you really come all the way out here to ask me a silly little question like that? No, you came to this place of new beginnings to ask me for a favor." "You're him? The one that Slim was telling me about?" Scratch spread his arms wide, then curled into a bow. "Guilty as charged, my friend. Now, how may I be of service?" "Can you help me get better at the guitar?" Scratch smiled again. "Fate truly does smile upon the man who comes prepared. I just so happen to have a guitar with me here tonight. Take a look at this beauty." Scratch reached behind the tree and pulled out an old withered steel string guitar. Robert shook his head. "Doesn't look very nice to me." Scratch nodded. "Yeah, the good ones never do. Besides, take a listen to this." Scratch fingered a chord and then strummed it once. It was just an A minor, but it sounded darker than anything Robert had ever played. It was the first time he'd ever heard an instrument truly embody what he felt on the inside. Sadness. Robert looked on in envy. "Can you teach me to play like that?" Scratch winked. "I like you, Robert. I'm sure we can come to some sort of agreement." "I'll work as much as it takes." "Well, I'll be sure and keep that in mind. Only problem is, though, is that I've already got plenty of help to go around." Robert sunk his back against the oak tree, feeling deflated. Thoughts of his late wife crept into his mind. "Please," he said, "I need this." Scratch smiled to himself. "Do you believe in an afterlife, Robert? You know, a place where all those souls go when they die." Robert's hands nestled along the roots of the oak tree where he and his wife had once promised one another that their love would last for all of eternity. I really hope so," he said. "I for one say unlikely, but let's pretend that there is. Would you be willing to trade me yours for this guitar?" "My soul?" "Yeah, if there even is such a thing. This guitar is real. You can see it. Tell me, when's the last time you saw a soul floating around?" "Well, never, but the preacher calls that faith." "The preacher, man. Come now, Robert, what's that man ever done for you? Sure, I see him talking a lot. I also see him helping himself a lot. Call me faithless, but I see a lot of hypocrisy in those words." Robert felt a chill go down his back. I don't think we should mess with this. Just in case." Okay, have it your way. I was just trying to have a little fun is all. But if you're willing to work, I suppose I can find something for you to do. Perhaps a job where your fingers bleed and your back breaks. One that you're far too tired at night to hold this guitar, let alone have the energy to want to sing." "No," Robert said. "Not that." "No? Well, perhaps my little game doesn't sound so bad anymore. So what do you say, Robert? Preacher man be damned. Will you give your soul for this?" Scratch said, offering the guitar. Robert placed a hand on its withered body. He wanted the guitar so badly. A little voice was shouting in the back of his mind for him to run, but it was soon drowned out by his overwhelming desire. He needed music, and for that, no other guitar would suffice. "Deal," he said. Scratch nodded, releasing the guitar. Pleasure doing business with you, Robert. I'll be seeing you around, but in the meantime, you enjoy yourself while you can. There was another loud crack, and then both Scratch and the campfire were gone. Robert sat in the dark and played a melody both haunting and beautiful. It was a song about love and loss, a song about life as it was and life how it should be, a song that one day people would call the blues. Scratch listened in the shadows, laughing to himself. He'd been called many things, but friend was never one. It was getting too easy, he thought. Humans are always so stupid after all. Still, there had been at least one who'd earned a modicum of his respect. Give the devil his due, he'd said. Scratch liked that one a lot, for it made him feel good about himself. But even the devil has their blind sides. You see, Scratch was also due. It just wouldn't come until years later.